Welcome back to my channel for another interesting tutorial. If you want to learn how I neatly achieved this design in front of this cowl kaftan, please keep on watching because I'll be sharing with you the drafting and the sewing process in this video, and also how to manipulate your fringes to give you that high-low effect. To my returning subscribers, I want to say a very big thank you to you all for sticking with me, and if today is your first time of coming across this channel, you are welcome. Please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on your bell notification to get notified whenever I post a new video. Without wasting much time, let's dive right into the tutorial. You'll be needing your main fabric. I got about 3 yards of crepe material. For the design in the front, I use half yard of turquoise blue doll face and half yard of black doll face. I also got my fringes. I got about 2 yards. The next thing you'll be needing is your matching thread, your pattern paper, and your hemming gum. My fabric has been neatly folded into 4 layers using half of my shoulder measurement plus my sleeve length. Then I added the extra 4 inches allowance. That means I measured from my center back to where I want my sleeve to stop, then added the extra 4 inches allowance that will be used to create the cowl effect, and also for my seam allowance. You can see the 4 layers. I'll be taking out my measurement from the folded parts. The first thing that I'll be doing is to rule my borderline. I'll be coming down by half an inch to rule my starting line. For my neck width, I'll be using 3 inches for both the front and the back neck width. Then for the neck depth of the back bodies, I will mark 1.5 inches. I will be connecting the 1.5 inches to the 3 inches neck width. Then for the front neck depth, I will be marking 3.5 inches for a plus size. But if you are making it for someone that is not a plus size, then you can use 3 inches for the front neck depth. After connecting my front neck depth, I will go ahead and mark from my center back to where I want my sleeve to stop plus extra 2 inches. That is half of my shoulder measurement plus my sleeve length. Then I added extra 2 inches allowance. I'll be marking 22 inches for this. 1 inch will be used for hemming of the sleeve and the other 1 inch will be my seam allowance. Placing my tape on the borderline, I will come down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope. Then I will connect it with a slant line to the 3 inches neck width that I marked earlier. When I was done with this, the next thing I did was to measure my sleeve opening of 10 inches. You can see where I placed my tape on the 1.5 inches I came down with for my shoulder slope. That is where I placed my tape to measure the 10 inches. I'll be using a straight line to connect it. On the sleeve opening line, I'm going to come in by 3 inches. Then I will measure what I have left, which was about 19 inches. I'm going to take note of that. The next is to measure my preferred length of the bubu gown. I will be using the full length of my fabric. I will not be cutting off anything except to trim off the unwanted parts to make the hem lines equal. I'm going to measure from my shoulder to hip line of 25 inches, shoulder to knee length of 42 inches. On my hip line, I'm going to measure and mark my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 6 inches. I will take it down to my hem line. I'll be marking it on my knee length and on my hem line. And I will have my points connected with a straight line. On my knee length, I came up by 4 inches. Then drew my cowl effect from my underarm down to the 4 inches above my knee length. I also added half an inch seam allowance to my shoulder, and then I will cut from my back neck depth to my shoulder down to the sleeve opening, then to the hemline. I also curved the underarm. Please do not make that part to be sharp. Have you watched up to this point and have not subscribed? What are you waiting for? Please subscribe to our channel to help us grow. It's going to ginger me. It's going to give me morale to do more. Thank you. After cutting, I'm going to remove the back piece and continue working with the front. I will align the 2 shoulders and then cut off the unwanted parts in the neckline of the front piece. For the slit opening in the neckline of this dress, I came down by 3.5 inches. I stopped at exactly 3.5 inches. And that will be all for the cutting of this dress. The next thing we are going to do is to draft the design in the front of this dress. So I have my pattern paper folded into two. The length of this pattern paper is 26 inches and the width is 10 inches on fold. I have this paper folded into two. You are going to assume that you have a chest line of 8 inches. You are going to place 8 inches on the start line of this paper and mark your waist measurements. Indicate it with a straight line. Place your tape same way and mark your hip measurement. That is your shoulder to hip line. Then rule a straight line across. On your chest line, mark 5.5 inches. On the waistline, mark 3.5 inches. Then on the hip line, I want you to mark 8 inches. I used 10 inches here, but it didn't give me what I actually wanted. So I trimmed off some parts later. I'll be using my ruler to connect the dots from my chest line to my waist, from the waist to the hip line and down to the lower part. I will cut through the lines and our pattern is ready. I will slit this pattern on the waistline and place it on the right fabric to cut out my designs. I also ironed an interface on the black and blue doll face before cutting out. I also labeled up and down on this part. If you look closely, you also notice that I did not add any seam allowance. Our beautiful design is coming out gradually. I will go over to my ironing table and fold in 1/2 inch, just like so. After folding it, I will use my iron to press it so that it relaxes very well. I will fold in round about it, both on the turquoise blue and on the black. Then I will come back and show you. This is how beautiful they look after giving it a good iron press and folding in my 1/2 inch seam allowance. We will be moving over to the sewing part of this tutorial. I will place my front bodies on this folded piece of fabric that I'll be using for my interfacing. I make sure to align the two folded areas together before tracing out my neckline. Then I mark the point where my slit stopped. I'm going to be marking that point where my slit stopped on my interface before removing my front bodies. From the point I marked earlier, I'm going to be measuring 4 inches. That would be for the wideness of my interface. I'll be measuring it like so, and I'm going to connect both points together. I will repeat this same process on my back bodies. Remember that on this front piece, I did not add any slit to the interface. Please take note of that. I'm going to ensure that the length of both interfaces are equal. At this point, you can decide to iron an hairstyle to your interfacing, but I won't be doing that. I'll be using my hemming gum. So the next is to bring in my front piece and place my interface under my front bodies. I will place it right side facing right side. You see the place where I notched earlier? I'm going to make sure that it aligns with the slit on my front bodies. After pinning, I will go over to my sewing machine and stitch down the neckline by 1/2 inch. You can see the way I'm pointing where I'm going to stitch down. When I'm done, I will trim off all the excesses. I'll be repeating the same process on my back piece. Right here, I was done stitching the necklines, and this is the appropriate time to replicate my front slit. After trimming off any excess fabric, I will slit open my neckline and give it a notch around the neckline. Please be careful while doing that. I'll be flipping my interface over to the wrong side of my fabric, then move over to placing my hemming gum in between my main fabric and my interface. This is the process I use to lay my hemming gum underneath my interface. Then after that, I will give it a good press, and this is the results. In my previous tutorial, I showed details on how I lay my interface and the process of ironing it. I'll be leaving the link in my description box. After ironing my hemming gum, I also use my iron to create a crease line. That is the line you can see in the center of my front piece, just to make it easier to get the midpoint of my dress. I will get my black piece and fold the upper part only into two, just to get this midpoint. Then I will mark it with my chalk. I will be repeating the same process on the lower part. I did not fold the entire fabric, I only folded the upper and the lower part to easily get the midpoint. And I'll be placing it on that crease line that I created right below the slit on the front piece. That is where I'm going to be placing the black. I will make sure to secure it with my pins before moving over to the turquoise blue color. I'll be repeating this same process on the turquoise blue. Please confirm the upper and the lower part before placing it on the front piece. The point where I marked is going to be exactly on the crease line. I'll be leaving a 1-inch gap in between the black and the turquoise blue color. Then secure it with my pins. The next is to bring in my fringes. I will get the 4 layers to match the lower part of my black and turquoise blue. Then stitch the 4 layers together with my sewing machine. I will also get the 4 layers that will align with the lower part of the turquoise blue. At this point, you can decide whether to place your fringes on top of your turquoise blue and black color after stitching round about the two colors. I don't know if I'm making sense. Like after stitching the two colors on the dress, then you place your fringes on it and also stitch it, or you leave a space of about 2 inches and then place your fringes in between your front piece and your design, your black or turquoise blue color. And that is what I'll be doing here. I left about 3 inches gap on the lower part, then place my fringes in between my main fabric and my design, then stitch on it the way I'm highlighting. Okay, but before I do that, I'll be marking where I'll be fixing my invisible belt. Yes, there's an invisible belt inside this dress. I will measure and mark my shoulder to waistline. I will mark it on both sides like so. The waistline I'm working with is 16 inches. Then I will divide my client's waist circumference by 4. On the waistline, I'll be marking 1/4 of my client's waist measurement on both sides, just the way you see me do on the screen. Her waist circumference is 42 inches. By 4 will give me 10.5. But instead of marking the 10.5, I will minus 1 inch and mark 9.5 on both sides, like so. I will get the midpoint. You can see the line I created earlier. I will place my tape there and mark 9.5 on both sides. This is the strip of fabric that I'll be using for my belt. The length is 36 inches and the width is 6 inches. I'll be stitching on it just the way you see me highlight on the screen. I will not be making any stitches on this other part. I've done that already on this one. You can see the way I am highlighting it. So from the part that I stitched, from the edge that I stitched, I will use my scissors to push it outward. This is exactly what I'm going to do with the other strip of fabric. Then on that place that I marked, on that 9.5 inches that I marked earlier on my waistline, that is where I'm going to be attaching these belts. I'll be repeating the same process with the other strip. Here I was done with all of that, and can you see how beautiful our front piece looks? That is my invisible belt. The final step is to give our fringes that V shape. What I'll be doing here is to cut some part of it, just the way you see me do. I'll be giving it the V shape. The best way to do this is either on your mannequin or on your client's body. That is the best way. And finally, I'll be stitching both the front and the back piece together. I will first stitch on the shoulders, then hem the sleeve, shade the two sides, and also hem the lower parts. And that's that for this dress. If you find this video helpful, please do what to subscribe to this channel, like and share our video, and see you in my next tutorial. Bye bye.